this is a great joy for Bill and I to be sharing one of our amazing friends and treasured advisory board members of our Human Ecology project, Bruce Monger. If you don't know of Bruce Monger, you must start to follow his work. Bruce is a senior lecturer and researcher in the Department of Earth and Atmospheric Sciences at Cornell University. And Bruce currently serves as a member of NASA's Ocean Biology and Biogeochemistry science team. He's also a lecturer for the CNS and eCornell plant-based nutrition and food and sustainability certificates. So this is very exciting for Bill and I, obviously, to have Bruce sharing with you around the world his teachings on the impact of climate change on the ocean and extreme weather. So I'm going to hand you over to Mr. Monger and Mr. Tara.
Hello, Bruce. Right, it's good to finally meet you.
Thanks, Bill.
The first question I wanted to lead off with was that I've noticed over the last months, particularly, I think because of all the storms that have been happening and the weather activity, that there's been kind of a backwash, at least here in the UK, of climate denial. And I wonder if you could talk a little bit about the relationship between what happens in the ocean and climate change overall.
Well, first of all, this year has been a really exceptional year for the oceans, I have to say. I work with global data sets. I use orbiting satellites to look at the ocean, and I can tell you over 2 decades of looking at the ocean, when you do global averages, year to year, the changes are usually really pretty small. And they're there, but they're pretty small. And I have to say this year, if you look at some of the data that have come out in the popular news, it's just off the charts. Global average temperatures have just jumped off of the graph. Take a look at some point and you'll be shocked. So big changes this year, but there's been this multi-decadal trend in the impacts of global warming on the ocean. And I jotted down a few of them to share with you guys today. First of all, I start off usually when I teach my ocean classes to point out what the ocean does to keep you alive. It's an integral part of Earth's life support system. And so I like to list some of the positive things that the ocean does for us that are all being impacted today. So some of the things are 40% of all the CO2 we've emitted since the beginning of the industrial era has been taken up by the ocean. So it's offset our problem by 40%. So you owe a big thank you to the ocean for that. 93% of the anthropogenic excess heat imbalance that we've created with the greenhouse gases has been taken up by the ocean. And because the ocean's heat capacity, it takes a lot of heat energy to change the temperature of the ocean a small amount. So it's offset how much warming we would have if all of that excess heat had entered the land or entered the atmosphere itself. So it's another thank you to the ocean. It redistributes the conveyor belt circulation redistributes naturally occurring heat from the tropics to high latitudes and does us a favor of moderating Earth's climate between the poles and the equator. Half of the photosynthesis occurs in the ocean, the other half on land. Photosynthesis makes oxygen. So there's this sort of poetic way of describing that to say that every other breath you take, you owe a thank you to the ocean for half that oxygen you breathe. Biodiversity, coral reefs, mangroves, all both biodiversity, but they also provide storm protection against storm surges. All of these things are being impacted now by humans today. We have polar ice caps melting in both northern and southern poles, sea level rise, more powerful hurricanes. The heat energy that the ocean's taken up is fuel to power more powerful hurricanes. We have increasing occurrences of marine heat waves. You've all heard about the 100-degree Fahrenheit temperatures in Florida. Coral reefs are very sensitive to temperature changes, and we have increasing occurrences of mass coral bleaching. We can expect to see some really big mass coral bleachings this year if the El Nino that we are predicted to have in the Pacific really becomes a strong one, because it gives temporary warming especially to the Pacific region, temporary warming of the ocean waters. In decades past, that wouldn't have been a big deal, but that warming is now superimposed on this multi-decadal trend. So it is predicted to be a really, really bad year for coral bleaching. The CO2 we put in the atmosphere that the ocean has taken up and done us this favor, it's come at a cost. We have a 28% increase in the acidity of the ocean, and anything that makes calcium carbonate for a protective shell, including organisms at the base of marine food webs, many of which are at the base of marine food webs, not all. These guys are all threatened by the increasing acidities of the ocean. Maybe less well heard, we have deoxygenation of the ocean. When we stratify the oceans, it becomes harder to mix oxygen from the atmosphere into the ocean. And so we have continued respiration, so oxygen is being consumed, but we're not getting it replenished because of this stratification. Poleward movement of mobile fish species trying to escape the heat. So a lot of the lower latitude fish species are moving poleward, both north and south poles. Yeah, and conveyor belt circulation, the threats are becoming more alarming. We don't have proof positive just yet, but more alarming evidence suggesting that the conveyor belt circulation that's done us this great favor are being threatened as well, and we threaten to destabilize that ability to pull heat away from the equator to high latitude. So it goes on and on and on and on and on. I mean, it's amazing. In 25 years, 30 years almost of being an oceanographer, I'd be on an airplane and I'd be talking to somebody as a grad student, you know, how are the oceans doing? I'm like, well, you know, estuaries and things like that are pretty badly impacted, but I work in the open ocean. It's pretty much pristine, and there's no way I can say that anymore. I mean, just in a matter of a couple of decades, it's just changed so dramatically.
Amazing. I mean, it's just, you know, Bill and I, like you, are passionate to educate. And one of our recent videos we had done on the ocean, Let's Keep Fishing the Sea. Bruce, I have another question. What are the most damaging effects on the oceans from human activity?
Yeah, well, of course, we just went through a long list for climate change. That would go to the top of my list, but nutrient pollution. You know, half these streams in the United States are by the Environmental Protection Agency to be considered unfit for aquatic life, mainly because of nutrient pollution. But that nutrients run off into the coastal environments, overstimulates the growth of algae. The algae grow up to high abundance, unnaturally high abundance. They die, sink into the bottom waters where they're food for bacteria. And when bacteria consume this dead organic phytoplankton carbon, they also consume oxygen at the same time, and they draw oxygen down to lower and lower levels, and they become what's referred to as dead zones, these bottom waters that are devoid of oxygen. Anything that needs oxygen to breathe, which is just about everything you can think of, a worm, a shrimp, a fish, needs oxygen. So these regions are sort of devoid of anything that needs oxygen at that point. Overfishing, another big impact. Shark finning, another big. Sharks, corals are probably in one of the steepest declines, but sharks are probably right up there. If I was going to pick a group of animals that were in really deep, steep decline, sharks, largely because of shark finning and shark fin soup serving a demand has been really bad.
You know, the effect, sorry if I can just say here, beyond with that, the effect of agriculture on the health of the oceans. Could you just touch on that, Bruce?
Yeah, I mean, I briefly mentioned that, you know, this agriculture is exacerbated greatly by the production of corn. Corn is a particularly leaky crop, so that when you put fertilizers down on cropland growing corn, a lot of it runs off into the coastal, into streams, and then eventually into coastal environments. So the corn is grown, in large part, is grown to feed animals. So we would have, you know, this drastic reduction in the amount of corn production if we wouldn't keep feeding it to our animals that we want to consume. Manure ponds, million-gallon manure ponds, They leak and leach nitrogen compounds into the coastal environment, stimulates the growth, same as nitrogen fertilizer. So they both combine together. I don't know, it's 30 or 40% of the total nitrogen that's put down each year to grow that corn ends up not being incorporated into the corn and into the animals, but one way or the other running off, whether directly as nutrient off the cornfields or manure ponds. More than 30% makes its way into the aquatic and coastal environments. So, and that stimulates not just algae, but there's definitely frequently recurring occurrences of harmful algal blooms. And I haven't seen the sort of hard science data on that, but all indications are that these increases in the occurrence of harmful algal blooms are tied to increases in nutrient runoff, not just into the oceans, but into lake systems, rivers and streams and lake systems.
Right. You know, you mentioned in passing there about sharks. You mentioned quite a bit about them, actually. I was just wondering if you could explain to people, because a lot of people aren't really aware of what you would refer to as a trophic cascade that happens in the ocean. And that, I know that involves sharks, but it also involves a lot of other favorite eating fishes, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah, I'm not as familiar with shark. I mean, they're apex predators, so they're going to have a strong downward controlling factor on marine ecosystems. I've not seen the data showing how those cascading effects in detail occur, but sharks, along with any other apex predators, so this could be the fast swimming bluefin tuna, any of those species, when they're removed, it's going to alter the downward pressures on these ecosystems. And again, they're all in steep decline. I mean, the apex predator fish that I'm talking about, there's been a 90% decline in the abundance of these top predator fish, not the entire fish population of all fish in the ocean, but those really nice, valuable, fast swimming apex predators, swordfish, bluefin tuna, these guys are all down by 90% from 4 or 5 decades ago. So I tell students in my ocean class that, previous generations have come along and taken 90% of the fish out of the ocean and left you with 10.
Yeah. I mean, I grew up in the Monterey Bay area in California, and my father's family were commercial fishermen. And I remember hearing stories about how they completely destroyed the Monterey Bay, when they started going after the sardines and pulling all the sardines out, and then, like completely changed the whole ecology of the sea life there.
Yeah, I would also say that, when we talk about, human impacts on fishing, aquaculture, raised farm raised salmon, for example, these are carnivorous fish. They have to be fed something, and what they're typically fed are forage fish. They go out and collect sardine at massive scales now. So one of the biggest pressures on the ocean right now is the heavy pressure on the forage fish, those small menhaden and sardines, anchovies that are being ground up and used as fish meal to feed the farmed fish. So there's no what do they call it? No free lunch. No pun intended there, but
we do get ourselves in some interesting situations, don't we?
Yeah, it's never ending. I mean, aquaculture has all sorts of other problems with it. So yeah.
So, the big question is for Bill and I, and for you and all of us that are trying to bring sense and sensibility back to the world, what can we as individuals do to help create healthy oceans? I mean, I know there's probably a massive list.
Well, I have a pretty short one, actually. Yeah, so what we need more than anything is to decarbonize the global energy system.
Yeah.
50% by the end of this decade and 100% by 2050. And we are not going to do that. All of the individual actions are super laudable, eat less meat or don't, eat a plant-based diet, take public transportation. But anytime anybody asks me, and years ago, that's what I would say. But now the first thing I say is, vote, vote for people that that are going to be leaders that will lead us, because we need coordinated government action to totally decarbonize the global energy system. We can't do it one LED light bulb at a time. We need massive government coordinated actions on these things. So I'd say vote for leaders and raise your voice. My oceanography class, at the end of the semester, they have to write a letter to Congress. Now that they're informed, I tell them all the data, all the facts, everything that's going wrong with this ocean, and I leave it to them to write whatever they want. They get full credit if they write with their heart, and it could be pro or con. It could be drill baby drill, I guess. Not many people do that if they've heard all of the things going wrong, but they have the data and they have the knowledge now, enough of it. They're not PhDs in oceanography, but they know enough of the facts to be able to write these thoughtful letters to say, leaders, you need to act on this and you need to do it right away. I'd say also, so plant-based, individually plant-based diets for sure are going to help a lot. Electrify everything, put an electric heat pump in your home, purchase an electric car, and just basically we're going to have to electrify everything and then use renewables to generate that electricity.
What's your thoughts on that, Bill?
Well, I was just wondering, I mean, you told an interesting little story about McDonald's hamburgers there,
Yeah.
which I thought was a good image for people to grab a hold of.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you want me to repeat, so we did this just before the program started,
Yeah.
but yeah, I say, I can't make people, convert their diets from a meat diet that they've had all their life to a plant-based diet on a dime. So I say, listen, guys, I can't tell you what to do. All I can tell you is how you're connected to the ocean. And hopefully, you go to McDonald's and eat that, that Big Mac, and you bite into it. Hopefully, because you took my class and I showed you the connection between that and the nutrients that get exported off the land from the cow manure ponds and directly from the agricultural corn crops, that you'll go, oh boy, there goes the Gulf of Mexico just a little bit more. And maybe you don't change on that day, but maybe by the end of the year, X number of Big Macs later, you're remembering this each time and you finally go, you know what, this is just not worth it, and you transition.
Fantastic. Well, we run a various programs, but one of our successful ones, Bruce, is called 4 Weeks to Vegan. And, for me, to get people in their kitchen is where the success comes from in our work, right? Because not only about saving your life or your health, but saving the planet. So over that 4 weeks, it's just like one class a weekend. And, they learn lectures, everything's on the table, from the health of the ocean to the health of the soil. And they learn to cook, right? And we have huge success that way, because if you can give someone good food that they enjoy, that's quite simple, and show them how they can also save money, it's always like a win-win situation.
Yeah.
People overthink the process, and it's not inherently about being, transitioning to vegan. It's like what lies in between their ears. They think it's an impossible task because it's been made so complex and it's so simple, so
I agree.
that's part of where we end, because education is the only tool we all have to change the world, right? And we're excited every time, we've got you and Colin Campbell and John and all our great friends on the advisory board. We have an incredible board of trustees, and the Human Ecology Project now registered after 3 years. We never gave up with the London Charities Commission. So once we start to get funding in, we are going to be running online the ecological kitchen from the Human Ecology Project, and it will be free for people around the world to come on and learn from Bill and I, and from our advisory board. The resources will be off the charts, right? So that's where we're at right now.
Well, that's great. I think that you're a very stubborn woman, I have to say. 3 years of fighting.
I'm very feisty.
I'm impressed.
there's a lot of people who are, involved in the whole natural foods movement and who have been interested in nutrition for a long time that still hang on to the whole issue of fish being a preferable
I don't.
source of
Yeah.
protein, and I
Yeah.
think that, maybe I'm wrong, but one of the images that comes up to me is people see cattle, if depending on where you live, you see cattle and you see sheep and you see pigs, and the ocean is kind of a deep mystery
Mhm.
Yeah.
for people. Very few people actually go into the ocean or even interface with the ocean in a way that would make them appreciate the importance of fish to the whole world.
Yeah, I can convey when I had my moment. I think, my transition to a plant-based diet, I think, started when I was an undergrad in college. And I think I can't remember, so long ago now. I mean, it's like 30 years ago, but anyway, I think I still maybe ate fish then, not thinking that they weren't meat, but somehow I compromised. I don't know. Anyway, I was with a friend. They were fishing, and I saw this fish sitting on the bottom of the boat that they just had caught on a reel and pull. And I watched its gills and watched this fish gasping for air. And I
Yeah.
just looked at this poor fish and I said, you know what? I'm done with this too.
Yeah.
And that was my
Yeah.
Yeah,
moment.
that's
Yeah.
it. That's it.
Yeah.
That's
It
it.
was clear. The suffering was clear to me.
I know, it's absolutely that's when you get that aha moment and you've kind of looked behind the curtain, you can't
Yeah.
pretend you don't know what's there, right?
Yeah.
So we're always upbeat and positive, are we not, Bill Tower?
Well, we try our best.
Yeah, guilt doesn't work so well. I think having a clear, positive vision out in front
Yeah,
is a really good thing. So really good foods, good health, good
Yeah.
environment. I have to say, when I give a lecture on the impacts of animal agriculture on the environment, I give it to a group that's already vegan. These guys are over the top because, they've just discovered that not only are they doing something good for their own personal health, but
yeah,
all of a sudden they realize they're doing something really good for the planet as well.
yeah,
So yeah.
absolutely, yeah,
And that's really, I think that's one of the missing keys sometimes in the study of ecology. That we're meant to have this kind of relationship with the world that we live in, which is kind of homeostasis. We're meant to have this balance with the world, and when we're eating a diet that's in gear with that, it automatically makes us more healthy.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And I'd say too that, I tell students, again, too much of my ocean class that I put in is a really popular class here at Cornell. And, you know, humanity, decades ago, hundreds of years ago, the population was small, and the technology was small, and we could bumble our way through thoughtlessly and not destroy the whole planet. But we have grown too abundant and too technologically advanced. Now everything we do in such a giant way, I mean, planetary scale way,
yeah,
and we have to get a lot smarter really fast. And everything we do, we have to carefully think through what we're doing and what the consequences are.
absolutely,
Yeah, absolutely.
absolutely.
Good
Well,
stuff.
an absolute joy and pleasure as always to discuss the ocean health, which Bill grew up with the ocean on his back door. Very lucky. Not so much for me, half an hour drive for me. But yesterday we were at the ocean, and we were standing there. Yesterday I was 66, so now I'm officially an old age pensioner, right? So my new logo is the passionate pensioner. And I tell you, anybody that comes here that doesn't turn the tide and become a Marlene, Bill, and Bruce,
Yeah.
not going to happen. They all change. Even pig farmers we had in Galway when we were teaching in Ireland, they came on our workshops, they all went vegan. So it's just about how can you get yourself out more and more and more, right? So we're going to just keep the next decade, Bruce, the decade after that. I mean, Bill's 81. He's like a boy. We hike and we bike and we do yoga and we eat amazing food. And I have the same energy when I was 30, 40, 50, 60.
Yeah.
And nearly 70. Come on, people, come on board. It's great fun, right? Health.
I'm 60. I'm 65.
There you go. So nearly there.
Yeah.
Are you a pensioner yet in America?
No. I'm having too much fun teaching.
Okay. No, I'm not retiring, but you're officially you get a free,
I guess so. Yeah, I guess I get to have all those discounts and
Yeah.
you know,
And
etc.
then
Marlene, it's a free bus pass.
I get
Yeah.
a bus pass.
That's what I've been looking forward to.
Well, Bruce, take care out there.
Meeting you.
Okay.
And it's such a joy and an honor to have you on our advisory board. We treasure the work you do in the world. You're a very gifted soul, and we love sharing your work and references and with all our students on our own courses. And next week, Oxford University will have the privy of listening to you because Sally will be here, the director of the Literary Festival. So that's wonderful. So thank you for fitting that in. Bill, over to you.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for your support over the last years. It's been great. It's important to have you there.
Thanks for giving
me.
Really
important for all the work that you're doing. There's message that needs to be heard.
I agree. And I guess my big thank you was for giving me an opportunity to have a venue through you guys to have my voice heard.
Yeah.
Raising our voices and having our voice heard is really important.
Absolutely. And the next time we're out in New York, we'll join one of your marches.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sounds good.
Lots of love, Bruce, and take care and speak again soon. Yeah.
Okay. Bye, guys. Thank you.